That's right, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Winning Drive, and we are jam-packed. That's right. Of course, we got the young phenom, CJ Vogel. He's on the scene. We'll let you know exactly where he's on the scene at in just a second. We also got the coach, former high school coach at Burnett, Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan. Also played college football at Abilene Christian. Coached there for multiple stints. Also on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head coaches. It's Coach Bob Shipley joining us. Right now, you can catch his work over at shipleyranches.com. And then we have the estimable Jerry Hamilton joining us as well. Oh, we are loaded. All right, let's start. I got to start here. Starting off with Coach. Coach, how you doing? What's going on, brother? How's everything?
It's all good, man. All good out here. Hey, I want to say one thing. All this, you're always talking about it, and you don't need to keep introducing me every time. I know you do, but I mean, golly.
Hey, it's called respect, Coach. Damn it. You're going to get it whether you want it or not.
Well, I appreciate it. But we've got a dude that watches the show from Lubbock named Clay Taylor, and he called me up and said, "Hey, man, I've been hearing about this shipleyranches.com on the Winning Drive, and I got a ranch I want you to list for me." And I'm like, boom, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm man, Rod.
Man. Hey, I'll tell you, Coach, and in the hats too. Oh, Coach, where can they get the hat set? Is it suede and
shield?
Oh, here it is.
Suede and shield co.com, I think.
I got one on, Coach. I'm rocking it for you.
Yeah, you are. Burning County.
Look at that.
Yeah.
There
it is. Suede and shield co.com.
I'm not the typical model, I understand, but I got to rock the hat, Coach.
Hey, man, that hat right there, you take a picture of this young phenom right here, because when he's on, like, whatever, they're trying to steal him away for, like, game day or something, we knew him when.
No doubt. Hey, and by the way, my man CJ, you are right on the scene, right? Tell the folks where you are right now, because you in your car, because you're working hard for the people.
Yeah, I'll probably have to bounce out here in about 10 minutes, but the Texas Pool Bash is going on right now. Of course, Jonah Williams, Josiah Sharma on campus, Michael Terry as well. A couple 2025s, more so, kind of looking ahead to the 2026s on campus right now. Some really impressive prospects on campus. I'm out here waiting for those guys to wrap up everything at the pool. And, of course, then we'll bring all the goodies to you, the viewer at On Texas Football on the YouTube channel, as well as on TexasFootball.com. We'll have all the updates following the Texas July 25th recruiting event going on campus right now.
Let's lead into, we got some big news today. It was crazy on Coffee and Football this morning. Myron Charles sent photos of him in Texas gear from his official visit, then said he had to reschedule. We kind of been sitting on that. Josiah Sharma did show up today, the Oregon commit, more in Ducks camp, not for him, but this for advertising purposes, right? But then Antonio Coleman, 4-star defensive lineman from Saraland, is on campus, flew in with KJ Lacey. He's committed to Alabama. That's a guy that Bo Davis was recruiting really hard when he was at Texas before Bo went to LSU. And Antonio Coleman's been committed to Bama, flipped to Auburn when Nick retired, flipped back to Bama. On campus at Texas, always had a little hidden interest in Texas. I've been down to Saraland 3 times. I've always been told he has a little hidden interest in Texas. Now it's a long way to go win that recruitment, but Texas, 2 4-star D linemen. Then the J.J. Hahn, the kid from Santa Margarita, gets in at 9 in the morning.
Oh, good stuff there, Jerry. All right, CJ, I know you're probably getting ready to roll pretty soon. Give me your thoughts about the prospects you expect to see or have seen here at is it a barbecue/pool party? Is it both barbecue/pool party? That's what we got in there.
That's right. So, okay. The prospects got to take in a Texas workout this afternoon at DKR, kind of get an idea of what these last few workouts are like before the pads come on. Obviously, that's not too far away, only 6 days. But they're at the pool party right now. There's some barbecue out there. I got to figure out who's cooking, who's going, like what kind of options there are, what the bites are looking like. But they'll certainly be heading out here in the next hour, 45 minutes or so. I'm really interested to see if we'll be able to get to talk to 3 guys, right? That's Josiah Sharma, the Oregon commit that Texas was very close to snagging a commitment from earlier this cycle. I mentioned Michael Terry earlier. I wasn't able to see him walk in earlier this afternoon, but that's a big name, obviously, out of Alamo Heights, the athlete. Where's Texas and him kind of at in their relationship, their pitch, position-wise, very important as well, but also Jonah Williams. And kind of pick his brain with the MLB draft, because I do wonder if football is even an option at this point, right? I think more so than anything, I think you expect him to play both sports at the next level. But if the MLB comes calling, what's his interest like in going straight to the minor leagues, or just skipping college in general? He was all over the golf carts today. His parents being escorted around campus by DKR, Moncrief, and up into the inner parts of campus as well. So he's been on campus for a long time, just getting to check out everything that he hasn't gotten to see with an official visit this summer as well.
Tell us what every On Texas fan out there wants to know. Is it the stag party or the females present? I mean, there could be some really big people there.
Coach.
I think it's a stag party at the pool party today.
Yeah. Come on.
I'm sorry, that's not the way we recruited when I was there.
Hey, I'm with you, Coach. I remember the Angels back in my day. They were great, fantastic. They were part of the hosting duties. You always had an Angel that was with you. It's always fun, and they were always fantastic too. So I don't know how it works these days. Cisco wants to know who's cooking up the brisket. Hopefully, it's better than what Lincoln Riley cooked up. I know it used to be my man Casey Studdard used to do some of the barbecue and catering. I don't know if that's still the case. I have not. I don't know exactly who's.
Does anybody find it wild that his defense is worse than his brisket?
Jared, you see he copied, or he commented on his brisket at Big Ten Media Day, saying, the brisket wasn't bad. The photo was bad. I got to become a better photographer than barbecue. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what the issue was with that. I'm sure.
And I just need a new set of irons.
Yeah. No, that's good brisket. In the Big Ten, that's a good brisket. Yeah, see, in the Big Ten country.
Yeah, Coach. Look, his secondary is the only thing that got burnt more than that last year now.
Yeah, the thing is, he posted it like he was proud of it. So that means that people around him also thought that was good cook, good brisket. Well,
if he cooks the brisket for you and doesn't take you out to eat, do you know any different?
That's true. Good point. That's a good point.
Great. Yeah, somebody Cisco said it looks like my beef jerky. I actually would take that on the road. I put it in a canister.
Hey guys, let me ask you this. I'll ask Jerry because I want to get you guys' thoughts, obviously, on recruiting before CJ has to bolt. Out of these prospects that are here, who's could potentially be a linchpin guy of this 2025 class for them?
I think Michael Terry's the big name this weekend. And look, and I'm not dismissive of Jonah Williams, the talent. But man, he's had too good of a July on the baseball field. So, I mean, he's listed by Blake Monroe talked about this a couple of times. He's listed as the number one high school outfielder in the 2025 class by some people. Those guys go high in the draft, and we're talking 3, 4, 5, whatever. You're talking a lot of money. But Michael Terry, for me, is, he's just one of the best athletes in the country. And like CJ said, it'll be interesting to hear from Michael Terry. I think Texas is saying we'll give you a shot at wide receiver, but you're still being recruited as an athlete that'll play on the offensive side of the ball, which to me is like a Mari Niblack. So from a recruiting standpoint, CJ, I don't think any of these guys are kind of linchpins. I think the guy that's on campus today that maybe is Diabell in 26.
Okay.
KJ Lacey making it in. Elijah Barnes made it in. Smith Rogbo, I posted the photo of him earlier from Twitter, rocking the horns. He was excited. He made it in with a few high school teammates as well, including a Cal commit on the defensive line who also made it in. His name's escaping me at the moment. Jerry, I'm sure you got it. Yeah.
He's Okafor at Hastings, Smith Rogbo's best buddy.
Yeah, but they made it in. A number of the Coleman brothers expected to make it in as well. But Texas, they did a great job in my eyes of keeping this small and focusing on the guys that, are certainly still, considering the Longhorns, right? That's Michael Terry, that's Jonah Williams, that's Josiah Sharma, while still kind of having that, junior day vibe with some of the younger kids and obviously commits on campus to help, kind of act as extra coaches on the staff, extra recruiters, lend their support or and pull in some aspects to the University of Texas while taking in the party, the workout, and obviously the positional meetings prior to all of this as well. So we'll get to talk to them all. I'm about to head out right now. I see a shuttle unloading at the moment. So you guys got it for the rest of the show. I appreciate it. And y'all hook them. I'll have the updates later tonight.
Hey, stay out of the way if the brothers decide to do a cannonball.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Coach.
Your truck will get flooded.
Hey, Coach, did you ever have to organize any of these pool parties / barbecues? Was that a thing back when you were on campus?
You bet it was. Yeah, it was with Herman. Yeah, sure was.
Okay. When did that start? Because that was, I don't even know if they had access to that kind of pool. I know they did. It's at Gregory, right? Is where the pool party is? Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it start when you were there?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so. I think it probably started in 2017.
Okay.
Probably. And
Tom Herman thing.
Yeah. And then, there's an auditorium right behind the pool. And so we would take them in there, and you typically have some professors or maybe, and then sometimes some players, some veteran players, and just shut them in there with the parents and the recruits only, and just let them fire away any questions they want at our, at the current players. Try to get some honest answers with them. But yeah, there was definitely co-eds there, and there were plenty of girls willing to help. Just make the guys feel at home, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't like they were there hanging out with the gin pop. This was all exclusive. You had to, know somebody or be in the know to get into the pool party, right? You couldn't just be.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
right. All right. I got you. All right. Yeah. No, they didn't have that when I'm too old, so they didn't have that back in Rod B's day, man. But that certainly would have been nice. They had some good stuff though. They know how to show you a good time. Interesting to see that started though with Tom Herman a little bit. That seemed like that was a kind of a Tom Herman thing. I like that.
Summer recruiting really, I think, Coach, kicked off about. It really got big around 2016 in that area, to where I remember schools started having the big June, July bashes for recruiting. To me, that from what I remember, that's when it really picked up in terms of the pool parties, the barbecues, and things like that. It may have been a couple of years before that, but that's a recent 8 to 10 years type of thing.
Hey, you talked about Michael Terry, and I Coach, I don't know if you got a chance to watch Michael Terry. He's the athlete. And he's fantastic. Do you know what the pitch is from Texas? Do we know? Because he's obviously he can play like 5 different positions at the next level. Do you know what Texas pitch is? What is it?
They will give him a chance at wide receiver. That's what he wants. Oregon was telling him running back initially. Jordan Davidson then committed, the running back from Mater Dei that Texas offered, committed to Oregon. I think Oregon was trying to be really different because he does play some running back, right? Yeah. Nebraska was the first one to say, we'll just play at wide receiver, catch passes from Dylan Raiola. Texas and Texas A&M are recruiting him as an athlete, but Texas is saying, look, we'll give you a chance at wide receiver. It's up to you to make it work, right? It's kind of like Cade Phillips' recruitment. We'll give you a shot at corner, and then if it works, great. If it doesn't, then we'll talk about it and see where your best spot is. But I think as long as Michael Terry wants to play offense, obviously it's a wide receiver, but I think long-term he's a Maury Nyblack. I mean, he's 6'2.5", 215, 218 right now, 80-inch wingspan, plays multiple sports. So he's not even really in a college strength and conditioning program or even slows down at this point. It's going to be tough, I think. And I don't want to say a kid can't do something. But Rod, you've watched it. Coach, you've watched it. I mean, we even talked to a former Texas 5-star receiver that goes to Alamo Heights games. He's like, oh no, he's that guy's going to be too big. He's definitely going to play tight end. We'll see. Yeah. We don't want to say he can't play wide receiver, but it would take. He's not the type of wide receiver Sark recruits.
No,
that's the one thing about.
Yeah, but he is, Jerry. In my opinion, he has a versatility.
Yeah,
that Sark looks like. Is certainly in their scope of when they're looking for guys. They're targeting guys that are versatile players, and there's no doubt he's one of the most versatile players that I've seen.
Yeah,
for sure this year he's the most versatile player I've seen. I mean, that guy, he's amazing.
He really is. I agree.
And he seems he seems to have an aggressive streak in him. I see him blocking downfield and stuff, and he's blocking guys into the sideline bench. Which will bode him well. But I can really see him lining up everywhere. Running back, H-back, wide out, tight end. I just think he's going to be a guy that in Sark's offense can do a lot of things and create some good mismatches.
Yeah, my belief is that the pitch should be, we are going to create a position for you, basically. Your position does not exist on the 40 acres yet. Matter of fact, your position does not exist in football, in college football. We're going to make you something that we believe in your potential and your talent that much. We're going to Sark's offensive brilliance. We're going to get together and create a position, just like Coach said. And I see him as kind of a modern day Kyle Juszczyk. I've talked about that, where he basically can make you multiple from down to down. All right. I can go from 12 personnel and then I can shift them back in the backfield and turn into 21 personnel. I'll go from 21 to 12. I can go from 12 to 11 because legitimately he can go out there and be in the slot and be a wide out if you need him to be. Right. I can go from, it just depends on how you want to do it. Right. And I think ultimately I agree with Coach. I would move him around the formation everywhere, different places. And I would create a position for him. And the Sharks offense, considering how multiple it is, guys, you run pony package now. You got two tailback sets, right? 11 personnel, that's your bread and butter. 12 personnel, your second most popular personnel package. So he can fit in all those different personnel package, whether you put him in the backfield or whether you put him as a tight end or whether you want to put him out wide. And I'm with you, Jerry. I think he won't be out wide as much as a wide receiver. He'd be out there, just as Coach pointed out, to hunt matchups more than anything. That would be my pitch. Like, no, man, of course there's nobody can find a position for you because it doesn't exist. You're that unique. You're that special. We're going to create a position for you. And that would be kind of my pitch. And if you like running back, we're going to have you play a lot of running back. If you like tight end, we're going to have you play some tight end. We're going to have you play some wide receiver. You're going to play everywhere. So no need for you to really pigeonhole yourself into one position because you're going to be playing them all.
It's a good pitch, Rod. John Calipari would love it from a basketball side.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, when he get here, Jerry,
that was good recruiting right there.
Exactly. And when you get here, as you know, Coach, it happens. Hey, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, hey, now you end up being a tight end. Hey, listen, we still got a vision for you. And by the way, Sark's tight ends move around as much as any players in the country. JT Sanders moved around in terms of shifts and motions as much as any player in the country. So you're still going to get a chance to be moved around the formation in the backfield and flex and out in the slot, different things like that. All right, Coach, we got to get your thoughts on these roster limits. And we'll get to the questions, guys, so throw them out there. We're going to answer as many of them as we can. We're grateful and thankful to have Jerry on with us now. So we got all of the recruiting questions that you got. We'll have those answered by my man, Jerry Hamilton. But let's get to the latest report, Coach, about the newest roster limit. Basically, instead of scholarship restrictions, they're going to have roster limits now. So in the 25-26 year, academic year, this is when the new framework of college sports, major college sports, is supposed to be enacted. And they are no longer going to have scholarship restrictions, just going to have a roster limits, and you can give as many scholarships as you want to the entirety of your roster. Like, that's up to you. They'll have a limit, but you can give the entire roster scholarships if you want to. Football will go from the 85 scholarship restriction to now having a roster limit of 105 players overall. Baseball will go from 11.7 scholarship restriction to 34 scholarship spots overall. Softball and volleyball will increase to 25 and 18, respectively. Another rule change that has yet to be approved but is expected to be approved is that now all sports are equivalency sports, which means you can give partial scholarships in all sports now, not just baseball and other select sports and other sports that were head count sports. That's no longer the case. You can give partial scholarships as much as you want. That gives you more flexibility. So, Coach, what are your thoughts? Roster limits. We know it's going to be revenue sharing also coming up that academic year, 25-26. But there's no longer scholarship restrictions, just roster limits. Give me your overall thoughts about it.
Well, first of all, Sorry, I've been at the country club today. I know I look like I'm running for the president of Del Boca Vista. But for us old guys, but they haven't moved me to Del Boca Vista yet, so I'm still hanging around Abilene. But okay, so let me get this straight. 105 roster limit. That's going to be 105 full scholarships.
Yes,
if you want to, yeah.
So the partials won't count. I think it's really good, but on the other side, being in charge of the walk-on program when I was there for Tom Herman, it kind of breaks my heart because I loved having tryouts. We would invite the whole student body, the guys, that anybody wants to come try out, and we'd have tons of kids come and try out, and we'd put them through drills and stuff, and it was just a really neat experience for them to do that, as well as guys that have always wanted to come to Texas. Maybe they weren't quite good enough to get a scholarship, but then they get it, and then they wind up being a player. Like some of them, I mean, we had a walk-on when I was there who wound up getting on scholarship and is now on an got invited to NFL training camp. So I think those are losing that part is tough because now those kids don't get a chance to be on the team anymore, probably. But it's going to trickle down. It's going to help. It's going to hurt the FCS too, because now you're talking about 20 more scholarship players, and you're going to go down, and those guys that are getting those FCS offers are now going to be getting FBS offers, and so all in all, it means more high school players are getting scholarships. Theoretically. Yeah. Which is a good thing, because high school players since COVID have taken a beating on scholarships, because you're taking the NIL guys and all that stuff, and guys kept getting extra years of eligibility, and every time they get another year of eligibility, that's just another high school player that couldn't get a spot, and I hate that for those kids. But all in all, I think it's good. I tell you what fires me up is that baseball finally getting what they deserve. It has been a disgrace, and it's all, I mean, I understand it's all the Title IX stuff, but I understand. But when you've got a baseball team at a place like University of Texas or Tennessee or wherever you're at, you got guys, there's very, very few guys on a full scholarship. And so you're trying to tell a guy, hey, come, don't sign that major league contract. Come here. We're going to give you a half scholarship. That's bull.
Yep.
So that's long overdue. So I'm really excited about that for our baseball program. You're really going to see a deep roster now in baseball, in my opinion. They finally get what they should have had a long, long time ago. Understand why they limited them to try to give the girls equal opportunities, but I'm excited about that more so than I am the football, because I'm a little OG, on the football. I love those walk-on stories, I love them.
Hey, I got three things from our conversation with Bobby this morning to add to this, so we can get us thinking about this. So, one, that increased men's scholarships in college by 60. Women's scholarships only went up by 20. Bobby spoke to somebody high up at Texas this morning before coffee and football. So Texas will be adding a couple of women's sports coming up here to hit that Title IX scholarship number, first of all. But, Coach, I want to ask you, and Rod, you too, two things. So we got in this last night, Coach. One of the things I said was, if you just look at defensive line, edge and defensive line, in the past, if there was a kid that you really liked and you said, okay, man, this kid's good enough to be here, but, we got to save these spots for the portal. We may need a guy that can come in and help us now versus maybe a stash and develop for a year type of player. Have freedom on that defensive line spot. Offensive line, maybe a spot extra there, but especially defensive line, which I still think is an underrated developmental position that fans don't want to hear about. You now have three spots on a roster for guys like that. That's a big difference to me, one. And I want y'all's comments on this. One of the things that Bobby and Blake and I got into this morning was, how will colleges attack this differently? This is a great ruling for Texas, Alabama, all the power schools, right? I think it pushes us to the 224 team super conferences. That's where we're headed anyways. But Bobby brought up something we got in a discussion about. If you're TCU coach, do you just go for 75 players and go full scholarship with those guys, have more money in NIL, and really push for those guys? And that's the way you try to combat a Texas with 105 guys, 100 guys on scholarship. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. And if maybe not the power schools that maybe aren't looking at we're going to play 17 games, look at this differently. Because I don't think every school can afford 105 football players every year. So it's going to be interesting to see how these schools look at it and attack it.
Again, it's more separation from the haves and the have-nots. I mean, that's obvious. And I'm sure a lot of college presidents and athletic directors are not happy about this because they're having a hard enough time financially making things work, especially with revenue sharing now and so forth. So there's no doubt it's going to create some separation. But I haven't even had time to think about that, Jerry. But that's a great thought. And a great place to start on your roster is with defensive line. Maybe even there's some guys every year you have, defensive line is the hardest position to recruit. I don't care what anybody says. They are few and far between. The good ones are. But you get a guy like Poona Ford, who thankfully was an explosive, great high school player. But not a lot of people are really, they put those 6-foot guys down on their list, even though they may have a lot of other positive things going for them. Now you can take a guy like that and see if you can develop him and see if he can fit into, what you're doing. And I think that's, like I said, a great point, Jerry, that the defensive line is certainly the first place I would start trying to increase some depth and some development. I hope it doesn't turn into more transfer portal guys. You may take a couple of 3 more to fill some immediate needs, but I really hope this will allow us to get more high school players and develop them, guys that, that maybe, offensive linemen that are 6'5", 220 pounds, give them a chance to grow, give them a chance to redshirt and grow. And so I see that as being positive.
Charlie says could possibly see more 2 QB classes with one guy being just a raw talent evaluation. Cisco says Trey Moore is a good example as well. What do you think about that, Jerry? By the way, I love that. I think basically what you guys are kind of describing is a practice squad of sorts with basically an emphasis on line play. A practice squad with an emphasis on line play, basically, and we can develop. And then it's almost, you feel good about taking some of those raw prospects like Coach talked about because you got extra time now and you got extra scholarships to develop them. And you probably can take more chances on guys like Michael Terry's obviously the most elite extreme example, but players who are just raw athletes who you believe will be great at a certain position of specificity down the road. But right now, hey, they're just a raw athlete. So I agree. I think, Jerry, it kind of opens it up to a really really creative way to have your own practice squad, and you can emphasize whatever you need as a program based on the ecosystem you're playing in.
Yeah, quarterbacks I totally agree. Quarterbacks is interesting to me because I'm a little different on the quarterbacks. I know you probably wasn't hitting on that, but just in general, if I was a dad of a quarterback who is a pretty good talent, pretty good player, I would send him to G5 over a P4 opportunity because if you go down there and you kick butt, the NIL opportunities are through the roof at that position. I would not. So the point, the question, could you have more 2 QB classes? I'm just here to tell you, me personally, seeing what these guys are getting paid at the quarterback position in NIL, and I know it's not about that, but I'd tell my kid, dude, go to Tulane and go kick butt a couple of years, man. Develop, go kick butt, and then you come up to the big leagues. If you're not a legitimate Power 4 type of kid. And that's not, I don't think that's running away from competition. That's, hey, go develop on the field, because if you go hit it on the field there the gains are so much with where the NIL structure is at quarterback right now for kids. Because if it doesn't play into it, I feel like as a dad, I'm not doing my job putting it all out in front of my kid. And maybe that's easier for me because I work in recruiting, guys. But I don't know what y'all think about that. But I think it's good. I think quarterback's always going to be tough nowadays because it's going to be hard to ever have more than 3 scholarship quarterbacks on a roster because guys are going to transfer out to go play. There's too much money in NIL at quarterback to stockpile quarterbacks anymore.
I totally agree with you. I'll open up to coach. I want to get coach's thoughts, but I'll just give you the numbers because I remember when Open Doors had their NIL annual review and they make it up. Obviously, you can go download it for yourself and they give you these numbers. So Open Doors, which is a company that tracks NIL transactions, and they have since the inception, the genesis of NIL, they claim based on their research, and they track it from directives, collectives, from agents, from everybody, from players too. They claim that the average value total financial package projections for a top 25 D1 quarterback is $648,000, right?
Woo!
And that it'll grow in 1 year, 24-25 to $821,000. And then they claim by 25-26, it could be at close to $1 million. John 24/7 Sports did their own survey of players, directives, collectives, agents to try to get a value of certain positions in the transfer portal. They claim their quarterback market range of transfer portal quarterbacks is between $500,000 and $800,000. So, and then we know Jay Norvell said that K-State tried to poach his quarterback for $600,000, who's a good player, not a great player, but a good player. So to back up your point, Jerry, yeah, those numbers are wild. They're eye-popping. Coach, what are your thoughts about QU's worth that much money to you?
Yeah, well, they are, but I have to agree with Jerry on that. I think it makes sense to follow the path that Jerry's laid out. But I also wondered about this too. It also gives you a chance to get a little bit of depth with your kicker and punter too.
Yes,
potentially, instead of having Bert Auburn came as a walk-on. Is that right? I mean, he wasn't even on scholarship his freshman year, and he's kicking winning field goals and that kind of thing. So it allows you to really go out and really find the best kicker you can find and put them on scholarship immediately. And because scholarships are still 1 year. I mean, they haven't changed that. And they should never change that because players do need some incentive. You know, you don't want to be stuck with a bad apple for 4 years. So they're renewed every year. Annually, scholarships are renewed. And the coach has to re-up them. And it's usually a formality, you know, unless a guy is just trouble, you know, and a bad apple. And typically, if you missed on them, you don't cut a kid because you missed. But if a kid is not adding to the culture that you want, and then you get rid of a guy, run him off, tell him it's best for him to, you know, not run him off, but hey, you know, you ought to maybe look somewhere else or whatever. But the NIL is also going to separate more people. They might have more scholarships, but as Jerry said, are they going to have the money to fund those positions in those elite position categories like quarterback?
Yep.
I mean, look, here's a question, Coach. You might know better than I would, or Rod would on this. I don't know, pick a school. This is what I wonder. How many of the lower D1 schools are going to walk away from football in the future? Can North Texas give 105 scholarships? They're not going to be able to play in the 105 land. They're going to have to stay in the 85 land, right? I mean, 105 scholarships, and then you get into Title IX. I mean, I just wonder, and we're headed to 2 super conferences, and I had one coach tell me, just play the G5s in the spring. You're recruiting those guys anyways. Just treat it like it's spring training baseball, and then the big schools are going to come pick our best players anyways. It's happening. But I just wonder how many schools can actually keep up long term.
Yeah, that's a great point, especially schools in California and other places that are having money problems. The whole state is having the state schools out there having lots of problems, but teams like Tulsa and others who, they're just not going to be able to keep up and compete financially. They don't have the fan base. They don't have the alumni support of the, Power Four conferences. So yeah, I think you're going to see some drop football or drop down to, FCS.
Yes,
possibly. Even though that's going to be a bitter pill to swallow, and I hate it because I want every kid that deserves to play college football to have a chance to play it on the biggest stage that he wants to. But I see them just continuing to just muscle their way into this elite 2-conference thing like you're talking about, and everybody else just fights for the leftovers.
No.
Until you just say, "Hey, I'm running up the white flag. We can't do it. It's going to put us under, and I'm going to get fired as the AD either way. If we go down or drop it, I'm going to be toast, and if we go bankrupt, I'm going to be toast." So I don't know.
Yeah. No.
Somebody asked this, Ron, real quick. Ricky asked, "What is women's basketball limit? Remains 15."
Okay.
No change there.
Why?
It's a good question. I don't know. Men moved up to 15 roster limit, so they're going to have 15 as well.
Okay.
Because men's been 13, women's been 15. So men's moves up to 15. And I didn't see a change in women. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's still 15.
Yeah, I didn't see that specified either.
I don't know how they can do that. That doesn't seem logical to me.
I just wonder if they're trying to force colleges to take on a couple more women's sports.
Hey, by the way, Jerry, any clue on what sports they're thinking about adding? Maybe gymnastics. I've always thought.
I think gymnastics is one, coach. Equestrian's been talked about. I think field hockey or lacrosse. I think those are the 4 right now on the women's side. Gymnastics makes a lot of sense because it's a strength in the SEC. And a lot of the kids from Dallas and all these academies, girls from all these academies, there's a lot of Texans in the SEC. On these teams. So that makes a lot of sense. I think that makes a lot of sense. Bobby said the problem with an equestrian that's off campus.
Yeah.
So where do you have on campus? What can you put on campus? So I bet and I'm not CDC, obviously. I bet gymnastics and field hockey. But field hockey in lacrosse is okay, well, you're traveling to the East Coast a lot for games, right? There's this little travel that's involved with that as well.
Well, you don't have the facility problem with gymnastics. That's that's not going to cost you. You don't got to build a big stadium. You don't got to build a big thing. I was visiting with Shannon Kelly, former quarterback at the University of Texas, who, those of you that don't know, is the husband of Mary Lou Retton. Hey. And it was years ago. I think it was when I was on staff with Mack Brown, probably back in 2013. And I was visiting with him, and they were on campus pushing for a girls' gymnastics team, but they just couldn't make anything happen. And of course, Stan Drayton, who I worked with on staff, who's now the head coach up at Temple University, his daughter is on the gymnastics team, a scholarship athlete at LSU, because Texas didn't have a gymnastics team. So there's a lot of great gymnasts in Texas, especially the Houston area, as you know. Yeah, tons of them. So, but they're having to go out of state, be able to.
No, that's a good point. I didn't think about that, but I do know H-Town, where I'm from. It's like a hub. Like it's like a mecca for gymnasts. They come from all over the world and train there. So good point there. Good stuff there, guys. We do have a super chat from UT Boy. Thank you, UT Boy. Appreciate you and all your kindness in the super chat. He wants to know from all of us, hook 'em guys. I'd like to share this. Express a thought as well. Folks are being dismissive of the talent and hands of Jonte, relationship or not. JC Hands A1 runs flat 4'1", 6'190". Thoughts? I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers out there right now, UT Boy, and I do think the main storylines when everybody's looking for, obviously, the news that On Texas Football is going to be reporting from training camp. I think ultimately, guys, it'll be about who's running with the number ones at the wide receiver position and how's the rotation, who's in the rotation, who's in that circle of trust. I am not dismissive of Jonte Cook. I think he's going to be great. I don't. How many 1,000-yard receivers do we think we have? We just have one, right? Do we even have one?
I don't know, Rod. I don't know if there is one. I mean, I think we always play statistics before a season starts, but we're talking 1,000-yard rusher, 1,400 yards combined for Baxter rushes for 1,000, 1,400 yards for Blue. I mean, you start adding it all up, and you're like, whoa, hold on now. These numbers don't really – the math isn't going to work. This is how the season works. I don't know on that. I mean, Isaiah Bond was what, 46 catches for 650-ish last year, 48 for 650. Silas Bolden was 53 for 750-ish, 720-ish last year. Matthew Golden had around 500 yards receiving last year. I don't know if there's enough targets to go around because if Sark does play 6 receivers this season, I think it's going to be hard. I mean, somebody might have a great year and get to 1,000, but I mean, did A.D. Mitchell even get to 1,000 regular season last year?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think only Xavier Worthy who's 1,000.
But if one of these guys separates themselves like an Xavier Worthy, I'm not saying we have an Xavier Worthy, but we have some really good talent. And I'm with you, Rod. Jonte Cook is high on my list. I mean, that dude he's very talented, but so are a lot of other guys in that room. If one guy can get the hot hand and be our next Xavier, our go-to guy that can get behind people, that can make people miss, it could happen, but it's going to be, like you said, Jerry, there's not enough balls to go around in that room. So the likelihood is probably not very high, but it's possible if we get on a roll and we play 14, 15 games. Yeah, that's going to be a little different. In 15, giving somebody 3 more games possibly could certainly help that area.
You got A.D. Mitchell had 845 yards last year.
In 14 games, by the way. That's 14 games.
Yeah, you're right. And then JT had 682. Of course, X-Man was over 1,000. Jay Wood had 5. I was surprised that Jay Wood had over 500 yards receiving. I didn't expect him to have that much. So, yeah, I think you're looking for who has over 500 yards receiving. I think that's kind of going to be the mark with this group. How many of those guys can you have? And right now, I think you could have 4 players receiving wise with over 500 yards. Yeah. The question is, will one of those be a tight end? Yeah. I think it will be. Nyblack? I
think Nyblack's going to be a dude.
Okay.
I really do. Hey, so for Jonte, if you went from year 1 to year 2, let's just say Jonte had, we're talking 12 games, 36 for 450. That's a good jump in year 2 on a talented team. Just to throw that out there. I mean, if he does anything, if he ended up with 50 catches for 600 yards, for me, he'd have a hell of a season. I know we talk about 1,000-yard seasons, but there's a lot of good players at Texas. Quinn's got to distribute the ball. Sark's got to get the ball distributed. He's got to run the football behind it. He's got 2 tight ends that are going to play in the NFL. Like you said, there's 1 ball. So if Jonte had averaged 3 receptions a game and had 450 yards in a regular season, that's a pretty good year 1 to year 2 jump to set up a year 3 and try to go off to the NFL. Just my thoughts.
What could really help Jonte is if, different guys end up taking on different roles on the team. If he becomes like the guy he looks to on 3rd down on money downs, or becomes the guy he looks to in the red zone, or becomes the deep threat, right? If you become like one of those things, then I think it could inflate some of the numbers. He becomes the deep threat, which Quinn had. I was doing some of the numbers on the deep ball for Quinn last year, and he got much better in his last 7 starts on deep ball. Actually completed close to 40% of his deep balls in his last 7 starts, so he got much better. If Quinn doesn't have a lot of chemistry with Isaiah Bond, he just got there. With Matthew Golden, just got there. With Silas Bolden, just got there. He's got chemistry with Jonte Cook. He's got some timing with him. So I wonder if one of those crucial roles, money downs, red zone, or deep ball, he becomes the trusted, kind of trusted target of Quinn in those situations. I could see Jonte having some maybe inflated numbers for that. In terms of him getting close to 1,000, I don't think that happens. I think only one guy gets there, but I can see Jonte Cook being a crucial piece and a crucial impact player situationally, depending on what situation, what role he ends up filling. So I think I like Jonte Cook. I think he's great. The guys were really complimentary of him at the combine, by the way, too. They kept talking about how great he was and big things expected. So thank you for the super chat there. Appreciate that, UT boy. Let's thank our fantastic sponsor, one of them, South Point Dodge. We appreciate South Point Dodge being a part of the On Texas football family, and then for us also sponsoring the winning drive. Texas football fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is the one-stop shop for all things automotive. And also right now, you can get a great deal on one of the Ram 2500s. They have over 50 Ram 2500s right now, all marked down with huge savings. So go check it out for yourself. You can go look at it in person. They're a great selection on 535 in South Austin, or you can go visit them online at southpointdodge.com. That's southpointdodge.com. South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything, and you can get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. Thank you very much for sponsoring the winning drive, and thank you for being a part of the On Texas football family.
Ron, I wanted to add this on the wide receiver numbers too. So I think this is going to factor into that. And I think Texas has a deeper wide receiver room. So Sark's, his circle of trust expanding, like you said. He said it last week. But just think about this. Last year, the running backs, your two main running backs for Texas, Jonathan Brooks had 25 receptions for 286. Cedric Baxter had 24 for 156. So they had 442 receiving yards. Those two at the running back position, not counting Jaden Blue. Those two. That number is going to be eclipsed this year with Baxter and Blue, and maybe even Trey Wisner. Jaden Blue's different out of the backfield. We've talked about him. What were his strengths? What were things he needed to work on coming out of high school? One thing I've always maintained, he has as good a hands, natural of a hands, down the field at the running back position as you'll see. So he's going to make plays down the field in the passing game. So if he puts up 400 yards receiving this year, that cuts into the wide receivers numbers a little bit. It's just going to be the way it goes in terms of yards.
Yep. I mean, Sark is on the record for saying the running back position is the most underutilized position in the passing game. So he loves to use his running backs, especially in the screen game. But I think Blue is a little different. Bijan, he used actually in a downfield capacity in the passing game.
I think
not
you're going to
just
see that.
air routes and screens. Yeah. And you may see that. In fact, you already saw it in the spring game, right? More of a downhill passing game, downfield, passing game with a guy like Jaden Blue. So I could see that, Jerry. And maybe they'll start putting him in the slot a little bit and seeing if you can find some favorable matchups there. But I agree with what you said about him as a passing threat, receiving threat as well. All right, UT Boy says those other kids have played a lot more ball than Jonte. Those other kids didn't play behind or the level of competition UT did, in my opinion. Thank you very much, UT Boy. Thank you for the super chat. No, you're right about that. I don't disagree at all. I can't wait to see who separates from that group. It could be Bond just because of the speed. It could be Jonte Cook just because the overall skill set and the chemistry he has with Quinn already. Hell, it could be one of the other guys coming in. It could be a Silas Bowden or Matthew Golden. I can't wait, or just to see who fulfills different roles on the team. It's going to be fun. All right, let's get to some of these questions. We'll try to go kind of rapid fire here because I know we're up against it. We got a lot of questions, and I got some topics I want to ask you guys about too. Vivek says, Jerry, it seems Jonah Williams' mind might be already made up. Does Texas even have a legit shot at this?
Yeah, look, I think Texas has a shot at it, but the reality is they didn't get an official visit. And if you look at the percentages, that's not great for Texas, but he's there with his mom and dad today. First time since April. Schlossnagel hired since then, right, at Texas in baseball. But again, I'm going to maintain this, and this is a compliment to Jonah. It's not a negative because the guy is when we say two-sport athletes, he's a legitimate one. To me, it looks good on signing day. It looks good for your class ranking. The probability that he actually shows up went down in July. He had a tremendous July on the baseball field. We talked about this morning. He was throwing 90. He's a lefty pitcher and outfielder. 6'3", 210, runs like the wind. He was throwing 94 off the mound last week in Atlanta. And he was at 109 pitches in that game where he hit 94. He's hitting 90 on the 100th pitch. But then you get to left-handed hitter, 6'3", 205, 210, really good speed, arm strength. I mean, those guys get drafted really high in baseball. The left-handed component of it helps as well. So I don't know. I mean, he's a very talented player, Rod. I know you love him, but he's a less than 50-50 guy for me. So it looks good on signing day, looks good for your class ranking, and he's a hell of a talent, but just know your odds aren't great.
NIL certainly helps, though.
It can help.
It can help, but it had to be a huge. If he was playing quarterback, it'd be easier, right? Because I think he can get more money, and he'd have the prospect of getting more money, like Kyler Murray did when he did get to the NFL, because he's definitely that talented. He'd get more of a big payday there. But at the skill position that he's going to play, where's he going to play? Safety, linebacker. He's not going to get the big payday that anything close to what he's going to get in baseball. That's why I feel you. It hurts my heart to say it, because I just want to see the young man play football, because he is, oh man, ridiculously talented. I mean, He is a freak, and he's multiple. Like, he's a positionless football kind of freak. He can move around the chessboard. But yeah, that baseball money, guaranteed money, free. You know what I love about baseball? Signing that contract. Hey, coach, lifetime health care, lifetime for the rest of your life. You don't get that as an NFL player, even if you're Tom freaking Brady. You don't get lifetime health care. Nobody in the NFL in the history of it has gotten lifetime health care. Baseball players get it all the time. That's the difference. And guaranteed money. All right. Let's get back to the questions here. Coach, I got a question for you, actually, because Mack Brown made a statement at ACC Media Days. And you know Mack Brown really well. We all do. But you spent time with him in the coaching realm. And he says this, quote, "There's been more changes in my last 3 years than my first 47. He said, why? He went on to say, somebody said today, why don't you write a book about your first day at Appalachia and now the way things have changed? I said, some people have to die first. We couldn't say all the things. He said, and this is something that kind of went viral. About coach. He said, every coach recruiting against us says, I'm going to quit. And 6 of them have been fired already. So they ought to be worried about themselves.
That's hilarious.
There's Coach Brown. I mean, Coach is going to turn, 73 years? It says there, Mack's about to turn 73 years old. What are your thoughts, Coach Shipley, about Mack's statement here? That there's been more changes in the last 3 years than he's seen in all of his days of coaching. Does that mean that Max, kind of like Nick Saban, that he's a little weary? He's growing a little weary of all these changes, and maybe it might be time for him to hang it up?
Well, I'm definitely not going to. I have no idea. And if I did, I certainly wouldn't say it. But you have to understand, Mack Brown is a purist. I mean, when I was on staff with him, he told us time after time after time, we don't have to cheat to get guys here. He's old school. Listen, we have enough to sell here that we don't have to cheat to get kids. So if I catch you cheating, you're fired. Time and time again, he told us that. And I don't know of one instance where anybody on the staff was cheating. I'm not saying that, but I don't know of anything. He's a purist. He loves it, and I'm sure it's gut wrenching because what he was really good at, they've kind of taken a shell from his chamber. You know, I mean, he was great at relationships, great at sitting down with mom and selling, and Sally being like another mom to the kids. Now people don't care about that as much. It's still important, but the NIL is important to a lot of people because, especially a lot of people who don't come from much. And so I'm sure it's frustrating. It's having to change the way he thinks, that changes the way that he recruits, and takes away one of the greatest things that he brought to the table as a recruiter. And that is being in a family atmosphere and playing for a man with the character of Mack Brown. Unfortunately, doesn't carry the weight that it did before with this much money being thrown out there. And even at that, people are still having to stab him in the back by saying he's quitting, he ain't going to be here, to try to out-recruit him because he's so dang effective. You know, I don't know how long he'll go, but I have not, unlike, you know, our outgoing president, I don't see any a mental decline or anything in Mack Brown. Nobody can accuse him of, you know, not having everything up there like he did. He is probably as fired up as he's been in a long time. But nobody will know when Mack's going to hang it up until everybody knows. That's just how Mack does it.
I think it's so interesting. And Vivek B asked this. He asked this of Rod. I think we can all. Why do you think the main reason Mack fell off? Just an inability to adapt in recruiting. I think UNC's not even equipped to compete at a high level in NIL. So, but to Coach's point, like Mack is, to me, is probably the best recruiter I've ever been around in this business. I mean, he is what Bobby Bowden was, right? Those guys are, and I still think Mack's the best. I mean, this is the best compliment I could give Mack Brown. Some people won't take it this way. Was like the thing that he had was he had amazing memory recall.
Oh yeah.
I said in his heyday in the early 2000s, if you said, Coach Brown, here's the deal. You have a year to go figure out how to run to be the president of the United States. I think the guy might have won the election. Because I think he forgot the vote. He has amazing memory recall. But to Vivek B's point, I've always said this about recruiting. Once you hit, and Nick Saban's commented on this, once you hit 70, it's a lot harder to ask the number one question a mom will ask you. You going to be there the whole time my boy is there?
Yep.
Period. Archie Manning asked Nick Saban, and Nick Saban said, I can't answer that.
I can't lie to you. I ain't going to lie to you. Mack ain't going to lie to you. Like, I can't say
he's not. You might not like what he says, but Mack is not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
He is an incredibly honorable man, and I'm forever indebted to him for what he did for my boys and what he did for me too, taking me on as a high school punk coach, you know, and showing me the ropes. I'm forever grateful to him, but it's coming. I mean, it's coming at some point. Nobody knows, but the guy doesn't really play golf. He doesn't really hunt and fish. He's like Nick Saban. He just coaches football, and he does it incredibly well. He manages his staff as well as anybody I've seen. And again, I just have the most respect for him. I can't emphasize how much respect I have for him. But one of the stories that my older brother told me, who was, you remember Big Mike Williams out of Lindale, Texas?
Okay. Oh yeah.
Well, when he was recruiting him, my brother was, I guess, the athletic director there, and he came in and saw him in the spring. Then he came back in the fall, I think, or maybe I think head coaches could go out in the spring at that time.
They could.
Yeah, and he came back in, and he's walking across the gym to the coach's office, and he says hello to the custodian by name. Remembered his name from half a year ago. Didn't forget it. And you don't think that makes an impression on people? Mack has that innate ability when he's talking to you to make you feel like you're the most important person in the world to him at that moment. And he's so sincere with what he does and the way he does it. And that will never go out of style. So as long as Mack is in the game, he'll be an effective recruiter. And I asked him one time, Jerry, how do you remember those names? How do you remember the names? How do you remember? Okay, you went to one of those classes, didn't you, where it's all about association? He said, no. He said, I've always been that way. When I'm talking to somebody, I repeat their name to them many times in the conversation, and it helps me remember it. And he just is amazing. He is amazing.
Yeah.
You know that, Rod?
No, I agree. He's a Hall of Fame coach, but he's a Hall of Fame human being too. I've always said that about Mack. Mack's a great person. I owe him a huge debt of gratitude as well, Coach. So I think a lot of people are in that category. And I've seen him do what you just described in person, where he saw somebody, met him 3-4 years ago, sees him again at some event, and then says, "How are you doing, Shirley? Nice to meet you. Let's see you again." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't think you'd remember me." He said, "Oh, of course I remember you. How's your cousin doing?" That one that
I think some of that, Rod. I think some of that he had Cleve behind him, whispering in his ear occasionally. I'm not so sure that didn't happen a few times because Cleve was sharp. Cleve was sharp.
Yeah,
I know Cleve. R.I.P. to Cleve, no doubt.
Hey, Rod, did the one thing you need to find out sometime? Any of your family members, were they feeding Mack and Tim Brewster the information to what to say to you to get you to go to Texas? If we ever have TJ Ford on here, his story about his mom and Rob Lanier, who was the assistant at that time, Rob getting it. Mary Ford wanted TJ to go to Texas, stay close to home, not go to Arizona, not go to Cincinnati and chase Nick Van Exel and all that stuff. Stay close to home, go to Texas. They thought it'd be very beneficial for his life. She literally fed Rob Lanier the entire way through the recruitment.
Wow. So
Will Barnes always had the answer, always knew what to say to TJ Ford.
That is brilliant. There you go. See, and once you get mama, that's like half the battle. I mean, and Mack got my mom on board. It was something mama just wanted to know if I was going to graduate. And Mack literally looked my mama in her eye and said, "I will personally guarantee your son graduates from the University of Texas." Crazy thing is, I left before I graduated, didn't come back until my NFL career was over. One of the first people I saw, coach, when I walked in there was Mack. You know, first question Mack asked me, have you applied to get back into school? And I was like, no. He's like, "I told your mama you was going to graduate. Go see Miss Bryant." I had to go see Jean, get back into classes. And that was the first thing, man. He's like, "I told your mama that I was going to make sure you graduated." And that was 10 years after he had made that promise to my mama. It was still on his heart. And my mama, to this day, she kept the degree. She just gave it to me 2 years ago, so I could hang it in it's up here. It's actually, you can look at it. It's right up there. There you go.
The great thing about it, what I love that they do is the school still pays for it.
Coach, you know, I thought that was illegal. I thought it was illegal, Coach. I didn't tell anybody when they did it. I was like, this can't be legal. I was like, this got to be some NCAA violation that they're going to pay for my school and give me a check for room and board and books, and I'm not doing a damn thing. I was like, it's got to be legal. So I didn't tell anybody at first, and I found out later, Texas actually has a separate fund that they have for student athletes to come back to school and graduate. Awesome. Yeah, it is, Coach. I thought it was illegal. I was like, I ain't telling nobody about this. This got to be. There's no way this is legal. But it is if you have the resources, though. Every school can do it. But I play in the NFL and I talk to other guys. Every school don't do that. That is a Texas. Now, more schools may do it now. But that's a Texas thing. Because Max told me, hey, we want everybody to get their T rings. We want you to graduate, get your T ring. He said it's good for our brand. It's good for you. It's good for recruiting. Good for everybody involved that you graduate from Texas, no matter what sport and situation that you were in. So, yeah.
And it's good to have those players coming out of the league around the current roster, too.
Yeah.
So they can bounce questions off. What's it like in the league? You know, this and that.
Yeah, I was in class with a lot of those guys. And not going to lie, one of the greatest experiences of my life, going back to college after playing in the NFL with money in my pocket on scholarship, and all I had to do, Coach, was go to school for like a year and a half. That was one of the greatest years of my life, and I won't even tell y'all why. Y'all can just visualize and y'all
no curfew check, no curfew check.
Coach,
you got to check in the dining hall.
Hey, but by the way, Coach, I was in the front of the class. I was always asking the questions. I was leading the study groups. I was an enthusiastic student. You know what I mean? It was fun. I had a lot of fun. So thank you to Mack Brown. That's basically what we're saying in short there. All right, get a couple of questions in here. Cisco wants to know, do y'all know if Sark will have an open practice for fans? I don't remember if the previous regimes allowed it. I remember Mack did back in the days. Jerry,
that hadn't happened yet. I would be very surprised if that happened. I do think they'll have a media window for all of us lucky enough to work in it for about a 20-25-minute media window next Wednesday and probably Friday. But no, I don't expect a open practice. That would surprise me.
Okay.
Not saying things can't change.
All right, let's go back to the top here. Zach Fisher had a question from the beginning of the live stream here. Can Jelani McDonald play star/slot cornerback? I'm in my second season of a dynasty with Texas. Ja'Day won the Thorpe from me in my first season. Yes. Who do you guys think I should replace him with? I'll just say this. It's interesting because I've always said that the nickel position, that slot, might be the most difficult position to play, kind of in modern football. There's just so many different things you have to do. Ja'Day Barron has said publicly they're cross-training almost everybody in the secondary in multiple positions. So they can play nickel and corner and play nickel and safety. I even saw was it the Shrine Bowl 1000? They had their list of the top 1,000 draft eligible prospects or whatever for the Shrine Bowl. They had Ja'Day Barron listed as a safety. I saw that on there. I thought that kind of stood out. I was like, oh, listed as a safety. And he claims he can play any position in secondary. Jelani McDonald, I'm not sure if Jelani McDonald is a coverage specialist.
Right.
He's a great athlete. And I mean, it's measurables. He's a freak athlete. Remember Keaton Crawford? Freak athlete. Guy could run, track star kind of times. But that doesn't make you a coverage specialist. Quandre Diggs was slower than him, but could cover better than him. You know what I mean? Yeah. But he wasn't the athlete he is. The coverage specialist is something I think that's kind of innate in some guys. They can cover or they can't. I don't know if Jelani McDonald can cover well enough to play that slot, covering receiver. Sometimes the best receiver on the team with a two-way go. That I'm not sure about. But I think everything else he actually will be great at. That would be my concern.
Right. I'll never forget when before Deion got into college coaching, he coached the Under Armour game, and he would tell the DBs every year that he would challenge them. Who wants to play? Who wants to play nickel? Who wants to play nickel Under Armour practice? And everybody's like, why? Because you're covering the best receiver. You have the toughest job, and you don't know it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It is. It is a tall task. That's a Herculean task. With that two-way go in the slot, where everything happens fast, it is. I agree with you. I agree with that 100%. So that's what I'm not sure about, but that's why, and I know this is separate from your question about the game, but they have Makuba that can play nickel now. They have Gilbo, who they like playing the nickel. Ja'Day Barron can play it. I think, actually, the young safety, Derek Williams, could play nickel. I think he actually is – his hips are fluid enough. He could do it if they needed him to. I don't know if they need him to, but I think he could do it. All right. Good question there. Going back to it, Kelly wants to know, with these new scholarship numbers, is there any chance we see the reintroduction of sub-varsity football at the college level? I think that's the FCS level, isn't it? Isn't that basically?
Yeah, I don't see that. I think you're going to get a lot. I think the coaches are going to – again, we're going to 2 2014 power conferences. Whenever we get there is when we get there, but maybe have 3 conferences left at that point. But I think you're going to see a lot of two-spotting, right, Coach? I mean, that's the main thing that's going to come out of this from a player development standpoint. I think that's going to be a game changer for these power schools as well.
Yep. Getting back to the questions here, Jedi Master Bevo, Jerry, how many of your highs are still in play for the 2025 class?
We got 3. See what happens.
I like that. LL says, joined late. Is CJ doing cannonballs at the pool party? I hope not.
Not willingly. Maybe Devin Coleman picked him up and threw him in.
Hey, if that's the case, that means they like him. If they're throwing you in the pool, that's because they like you, man. That'd be good for CJ. How about this one? And this is interesting. I want this one for you, Coach. Todd Lacey wants to know, you hear all the time about these big bucks. What about players who get the dollars and don't perform? Are there clauses for them to lose monies? How does that work? That's a great point. I don't know if that exists. I think once you get the money, it's like professional sports, right? You got the money.
Yeah, I'm sure it's on an annual basis.
Yeah.
So I think those things are probably renegotiated every year. I don't think anybody's going to get it. You don't know how long somebody's going to be there, and obviously that's in the contract too. If they transfer, I'm sure it ends. Obviously, you're not going to keep getting money from a school once you've left. It's not like they got to pay them out like they do coaches. Mm-hmm. No, I think it's a year-to-year thing, and it's reevaluated every year, and which is good. That's an incentive for the kids to continue to be ballers, and to make plays so that they are more valuable in the NIL world.
I always wonder, so because I agree with you, Coach, year to year, the scholarships are year to year. You go in there and with Mack, and I remember having to sign my scholarship every year. And I wonder, if you're a player, how do you renegotiate? Do they come to you, or do I have to send my representative to the coaches?
That's it.
You say I send our representative and say, "Hey, coach, I think I need." Okay, it's such a weird thing, but I guess that's how you do it. Or you threaten to. You got to put out there on social media that there are rumors I might transfer. Hey,
in the portal,
right?
Well, that's another comment Mack made in the press conference. Is basically we're the mini NFL now.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I mean, it'd be very uncomfortable for a kid to go sit down with his position coach or head coach and say, "Hey." Although it happens, who was the coach that came out? I don't remember how it was since the last season, I think. And he said, this thing's getting crazy. My second or third team running back came in and said he had to have, $300,000 or he was transferring.
I do remember this. I don't remember the coach.
It wasn't a huge, it was somebody like, it wasn't Minnesota, but it was somebody, Illinois.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I can't remember who it was. But anyway, so there apparently are players that do go in and say, "Coach, I got to have this or I'm leaving." But I think most of them, especially the elite ones that have representation, I'm sure that's probably how it's done.
That man,
Maryland.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. I love when the
third string running back demanding $100,000.
By the way, I love these coaches are revealing these numbers. And they don't do it often, but we heard Jay Norvell do it with the $600,000 offer from his quarterback from K-State or some rogue booster or whatever from K-State. I remember Matt Rule and Ryan Day talking about, "Hey, I need this much to maintain my roster. It costs you $1 million to get a big time quarterback these days." Because we don't necessarily get it from the horse's mouth usually, and we don't even know where they're getting the information from. They could be getting false information from some rogue representative or agent, but we don't know if the numbers are real in the NFL.
Well, that's the biggest problem. Rod, that's the biggest problem in this right now. And look, and I want to say this. I think profit sharing is going to be great. I'm all for players getting paid. I think there's got to be some structure. This can't exist forever. But the biggest problem now is, think about this. Just say player X's representative comes to you in your Texas and saying, "Hey, look, man, I got these two schools that are offering $500,000. You don't know if it's true or not.
You have no idea.
So you're either going to call their bluff or you're going to lose the kid.
Are you going to call the coach and say, "Are you tampering?"
Right.
And of course, he'll say, "I don't know what you're talking about," because he probably doesn't know. But somebody on that staff knows.
Yeah. And by the way, Coach, who's going to enforce the tampering rules? Because the NCAA won't.
Yeah, there is no doubt. Let the guilty man throw the first stone.
Exactly.
That's why I think, look, what Mike Loxley said, and thank you, producer Matthew, for bringing that up on short notice.
Yeah,
look, I'm for the guys getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. Always have been. I do think the profit sharing is going to be very, very good to set some sort of playing field there. Now, quarterbacks, guys can go earn outside of it. But I do think that's going to make this a much better, smoother, and more consistent process. The only people that probably won't like this are the agents that have infiltrated in the college and high school recruiting.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right.
And honestly, you don't want the NIL deals published, because now the schools know what they have to compete against, So, hey, they're only paying this kid so much a year. Hey, we got one of our guys on our team that was recruited with him or went to high school with him. Hey, let's see if there's any interest. I'm sure that's how the majority of it is done. It's not coaches tampering. It's teammates or somebody or something that knows them on the team will probably make the first contact and see if there's any interest, and then maybe report that to his coach or graduate assistant or whoever's in that room. That's my guess.
All right, good stuff there, guys.
Hey, Rod, this question for you before we get out of here. This started a good conversation in the chat. For Rick Ambergi asked, who ends up opposite Muhammad, Cole or Holmes? Cole better, ball hawk, ? Holmes a year in the system with the advantage. I want to get your thoughts on that before we get out of here, Rod.
When I spoke to Javion Cole, he basically said that one of the reasons that they liked him was because he was coming from a very similar system, so that the transition to Texas system, it won't be something unfamiliar to him. So I don't expect that transition to really hinder him in competing for that spot. I think the biggest issue is going to be he did not play a lot of bump and run man-to-man at the school that he was at. I know Texas wants to play more of that situationally. Remember the end of last season, start to play more bump and run on the field side and the boundary side. I think that's what they actually want to do and be more aggressive. And if that's the case, it could, that could determine who's going to win that spot. I think Javion Cole is a better off coverage corner. I think he's more patient. I think his eyes are very disciplined, does a good job of reading his keys. His feet are in the right place because his eyes are always in the right place, and that takes him to the ball, and he's a natural ball hawk. So if you're going to just look at off coverage, I would give him the advantage there. But I think I may give Gavin Holmes the advantage playing press man. He may have played more press man and may have more familiarity with the system. So I think it'll come down to three things. Who can play better off zone coverage, off man coverage, and bump and run man coverage? I think Cole may have the advantage with the off man coverage right now. We'll see which one of them plays better. Obviously off zone coverage. We'll see which one of them plays better off man and bump and run coverage. I think that'll be determined during fall camp, and I think that actually may determine who wins the job. But I like Javion Cole. I'm a big fan. And I think Gavin Holmes, he's got some strengths. I think ultimately he may be a better press coverage corner. If that is the case, then it may be really tough to make that determination who's going to win that job. But I like both of them. And my thing is, you got options. If they don't win the job, it's okay. If you don't trust them, you can always move Jadae Barron out there, put Makuba at nickel, or put Jalen Gilboa at nickel, and I think you'll be okay. So you got options. Before we get out of here, let's thank our fantastic sponsor, Flat Creek Estate Winery, once again for being a part of the On Texas football family, but also sponsoring our winning drive here on Thursday. Did you note the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin, Texas? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. It is a great wine now available at your local spec, so give it a try. Of course, you can also visit Flat Creek because it's also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. So go check it out for yourself, flatcreekestate.com. Go check out flatcreekestate.com. You can check out the wine selection there, or you can make reservations to visit the beautiful vineyard just minutes from downtown Austin. Also, they have Flat Creek wine at Central Market. My wife does some grocery shopping there, and she saw her favorite wine at Central Market. She was really excited. So they have that Super Texan there at Central Market as well. You can go check it out for yourself. That's flatcreekestate.com. All right. Thank you very much to Flat Creek Estate for sponsoring the Winning Drive. Thank you very much to South Point for also being a sponsor of the Winning Drive. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes doing a great job, and all your super chats and questions. Folks, really appreciate your participation for Coach Bob Shipley. Also, don't forget tomorrow we'll be back with Coffee and Football tomorrow starting at 8 a.m. And then we'll have our Friday live stream at 1 p.m. So we'll get you caught up on all things recruiting, all the nuggets. If you just stick to OnTexasFootball.com and the On Texas Football YouTube channel, we'll make sure that you're kept up and updated on all things recruiting with the barbecue/pool party happening there on 40 acres. All right. Thank you guys very much. Great job, Coach. Appreciate the wisdom. Any last words for the people before we get out of
here? Look, Coach, enjoy what you're watching on TV tonight, but Rod and I are going to be watching The Real Housewives of Orange County.
I'm going to be out politicking for the president of Del Boca Vista.
Yeah, somebody tells me Coach don't watch no Housewives. Coach don't watch stuff like that. All right, thank you guys for all your participation. Really appreciate it. For Coach Bob Shipley, for Jerry Hamilton, my man CJ as well. Matthew behind the scenes is the real MVP. Thank you very much, Matthew, for all you do for the folks at South Point Dodge and Flat Creek State Winery. Until next time, hook 'em horns.